series on digital tools for English language teaching in schools. For today's session on using images for teaching English in the digital era, we have with us Professor John Potts. Professor Potts is a well-known teacher trainer who has helped thousands of teachers develop and enhance their classroom skills. To say in detail, he has been working as an ELT professional and teaching for Cambridge exams since 1978. I think most of us wouldn't have been born by that time, and our age is his experience. He has been course director of Cambridge CELTA and Delta teacher training schemes at IH Baden, Zurich, Switzerland, and assessor of CELTA worldwide from 1988, and was the CELTA Joint Chief Assessor for Switzerland, France, Germany, Austria, Poland, and many other countries for 11 years. He has been authoring and co-authoring many ELT publications through CUP on Longman, and he is a regular columnar in English Teaching Professional from 1999 to 2014. He has been the authorized presenter for Cambridge English since 1990. He has been busy with seminars and workshops and is working on school projects and training programs in India and in Tanzania. He has also worked in other countries, which includes UK and Germany. In addition, since 2002, he is closely connected with India and has been giving workshops for teachers. As a special mention, Professor Potts in India, and more particularly in Tamil Nadu, works closely with the NGO called Madurai Seed and is the president of its Swiss group called Friends of Madurai Seed, which he co-founded in 2008. And it is in one such workshop way back in 2003, I met Professor Potts. Welcome, Professor. And now I hand over the session to Professor Potts.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. First of all, hello, everybody. And can you please type hello in the chat box, please, if you can hear me? Just type hello in the chat box so that I can tell that you can hear me. There's one, there's some, yes, good. I can see, lovely, great. Yes, fantastic. So hello to all of you. As you can see, you can send a message to me through the chat box. So if you want to ask a question or if something's not clear, then put the message into the chat box and I'll do my very best to deal with it so that you can have your answer as quickly as possible. Okay, so let me just say a couple of things about myself. As you heard, I've been working as a teacher for a long time, and one of the things I developed over the years was an interest in using visuals and pictures to enhance learning. And the digital age has made this even more attractive. In the old days, I had to cut them up out of a magazine and paste them onto pieces of paper or cardboard, but now I can project them. So let's have a look at some ways of using visuals in your teaching. And I'm going to take you through this presentation. And as I said, you can always ask a question in the chat box. Okay, let's just see if I can do that. Sorry, I just need to, there we go. Right, so an outline of today, first of all. Well, we're going to look at how to find images, which is the first point. Without the image, we can't do anything. So let's start off with how to find images and how to acknowledge them, how to give credit to the photographer who took that image, which is important, I think. And then we're going to also look at some different types of image, different categories of image. So for example, there are descriptive images or speculative images or narrative images or topical images. So images are not just simply pictures, but can be categorized in different ways. And we'll look at that in a bit more detail as we go along today, this afternoon. And we're also going to look at what we can use these images for. So for speaking activities, for example, or to set a topic, or for vocabulary development, or for work with grammar, working on functions of language, etc. So we're going to look at where to find them, what different kinds of image there are, and how these different images can be used. Okay, so, all right. So first of all, finding images and acknowledging images. Well, images that you find online are usually subject to copyright restrictions. In other words, a photographer or a media outlet owns the copyright to that image. And strictly speaking, you shouldn't really use copyright material without permission. Now, I know this is often not observed, but I think it's important for me to point out that strictly speaking, from a legal point of view, images are the intellectual property of somebody, either the photographer or the news medium, the BBC or whoever, the Hindu newspaper. And so we need to be very careful about this from a purely legal point of view. So one way to avoid these problems is to use websites that provide images that are free of copyright restrictions. In other words, the image has been permitted, if you like, to be used by the photographer. So you don't have to worry about any questions of legality here. And there are a couple of sites that we could look at. One is called Unsplash. This is free, the images are free, and you can use them freely. You can use them without copyright restrictions. Another is called Pixabay. Now, there are many sites. I don't want to have a huge list of too many because it's sometimes too much, if you like, too much overload. So I think you should be able to find all the images you need. If you, sorry, Rad, can you turn your microphone off, please, Rad? Okay. Ryas, and use the chat box. So Unsplash and Pixabay then are two sites. I think you'll find everything you need there. I don't know that you'll need more sites. But if you use images from these sites, it's still good etiquette, it's still good considerate behavior to acknowledge the source and the photographer. So in other words, you take a picture from Unsplash, but when you use it, you still have a little bit of text on the image that says where it's from and who took it. I think that's good etiquette. It's sort of an acknowledgement to the photographer for their work. Now, another way of dealing with this is to take the pictures yourself. And I think that is something that most of you, I'm sure all of you, have got mobile phones with a camera. Sometimes the cameras are very good indeed these days in a mobile phone. So you can take the pictures yourself. And then, of course, it's your copyright because you own that picture. It's your picture. So you can use that as you wish without any problems at all. Okay, so I'll just hold that slide for a moment, just in case you want to make a note of those two web addresses, unsplash.com and pixabay.com. As I said, those should be more than adequate for your needs. You can search these sites, you can type in the category of image you want, such as people enjoying a meal, or I don't know, cricket, or a beach scene, and it will find you images that you can choose from. And you can download them for free and use them thereafter. Okay, so I'll just move on now from that slide. I think we've had enough time to look at those addresses. Okay, here's a picture that I took myself. You can see in the image at the bottom there, it's got the credit and copyright is mine. I took it, so I can use it without any problems. If you decide to use this picture, can you please also credit me that I took it, just from the, what shall I say, the etiquette of acknowledgement. So let's look at some categories of image now. What kind of, oh yes, thanks Sarata. It is a very nice picture, isn't it? That's taken in the Swiss mountains. Sarata Rani wrote that it's a lovely picture, so thank you. That's in the Swiss mountains, and that was taken in the autumn when the leaves are changing from green to orange, as you can see. Okay, so it's, and you can see some very typical Swiss mountains there in the background. Not quite as high as the Himalayas, it's true, but still quite high. At this point, we're about, oh, let's say something like 1,800 meters above sea level or something like that. Okay, so let's have some categories of image. Well, not every image lends itself to the same kind of use. So some images, some pictures are very clear what they show. They are very, very explicit, if you like. And so these are often good for description because it's very clear what it is, for vocabulary. So this picture here that we have clearly a lake and hills and mountains and trees and water and grass and so on. So we could get lots of vocabulary out of that without any problems because it's so clear what it's showing. But some images are more ambiguous. They're not so clear. They are, they could be interpreted in different ways. So those would be good images for speculation and for interpretation. So rather than saying what it is, we could say what it could be, what it might be. And I'm very, very keen on this. I want my learners to speculate and not always say it is this and it isn't that, but sometimes to say, well, it could be this, perhaps it's that, it might be this. Some images are more evocative or emotive. They raise feelings, which you could say this picture does. Can you type in the box, in the chat box, what feelings or what emotions does this picture give you as you're looking at it now? In the chat box, just give me a word or two that describes your feelings as you look at this picture. So put something in the chat box. Serene, very nice, yes, that's Usha. Peaceful, yes, yes. Reflection, yes, good, yeah. Yes, peaceful, very calm, yes, exactly. So we've got some very nice emotions coming through there, all very positive, aren't they? You know, they're all nice emotions, positive emotions. Yeah, good. Okay, so that would be just to, if we use a picture like this, you can get your students to respond in the same way in this. Yeah, as you are doing now. Okay, and notice all that's being generated by the image. It's the image that's making you say these things. Yeah. And notice that I, as the teacher, don't have to say too much. I can show the image and ask the students to respond. Yeah. So the students do all the work and I just provide the image, if you like. We can then work with those adjectives, all those nice adjectives you gave me, like serene and so on. Some of your learners may not know that word, but another learner does. And so we can start developing some vocabulary, for example. Some images have got a very high vocabulary potential or a very high grammar potential. So, for example, a picture of a crowded railway station. There might be lots of things going on, what people are doing, sitting, standing, walking, talking, carrying, waiting, looking. And so that would generate lots and lots of present continuous verb forms, for example. Or a picture of a shop might generate lots of vocabulary of all the things that are being sold by that shop, in that shop. So some pictures then are high for vocabulary or high for grammar. So we can see already we've got 4 different ways of looking at categories of pictures, ones that are quite explicit, some that are more ambiguous, some that are more evocative, some that are more language focused, if you like. Some pictures might lend themselves to narrative and storytelling, that you can construct a story around one picture or perhaps 2 or 3 pictures. Or some pictures may cause the students to express their opinions of what they think about something. So we're getting quite a range of things here. It's not just an illustration, but an image that we can use in different ways for different purposes. Okay. Let's have a look at some uses now. What can we do with them? Oh, here's a picture taken in Meduray, by the way. So we can use images to develop skills activities. So speaking activities, writing activities, reading activities, listening activities. Images tend to be used more for speaking and writing, I think, than reading and listening, because obviously you can't read an image in the literal sense of there aren't any words in it, nor can you listen to an image in that sense. So when we use them with reading and listening, the image is perhaps supporting what the students are reading or supporting what they're going to listen to, rather than the reading or listening activity in itself. Whereas for speaking and writing, the image is very often the stimulus for what the students are going to say, or could say, or what they're going to write about. So we've got skills activities then that can be generated from an image, or language activities. We've mentioned this already. Some images may have a very high vocabulary potential. Others may be good for a grammar focus. Some may be good for a functional focus. And I'd just like to check with you that you're happy about that word, functional focus. Functions are what we do with the language, like when we express preferences or make suggestions, or when we admit or deny something, or invite somebody, or apologize for something. These are all called different functions. And each function, such as giving advice or making suggestions, can be expressed in different ways. So, for example, if I want to give advice or make suggestions, I can say, you should, you could, why don't you, how about doing this, and so on. So a picture may generate a functional focus, and you can use it as the springboard for those different ways of expressing the function, the exponents of the function. Or it may be that the picture can be a topic focus. In other words, we have a picture here, for example, of this two-wheeler or scooter, and we can talk about the different forms of transport and which are best suited for the city and which are better suited for the countryside and so on. So it could be a topic, a transport, and this picture is a trigger or a springboard for that. Okay, so that's some of the uses of pictures then, the uses of images. All right, let's just move on. Now here's something that I developed some years ago now, and it's called SixWay Picture, which might be a bit puzzling at first. SixWay Picture, what do I mean by that? You'll notice, by the way, in the image that I didn't take this. It was taken by someone called Christian Kupke on Unsplash. And so when I used the picture, I put the acknowledgement in there, as you can see. That's saying that he took the photograph. And those are actually, when they are in your photograph, they're actually links. If you click on it, you can go to his page on Unsplash. So this is just that etiquette I mentioned before of acknowledging someone for their work. I've just seen the comment in the chat box about the previous picture. Yes, that's very, very nicely put there in the chat box. The proud owner of her dream bike. Exactly, that's exactly what the picture is all about. Yeah, great. Okay, so SixWay Pictures then. What do I mean by SixWay Pictures? What's this all about? Let's look. My idea is this, that one image, in this case the one we can see, can be used in a number of different ways, or dimensions, if you like. I've put it in inverted commas. So we can look at a picture and do different things with it and look at it in different ways, rather than just the picture has a meaning. Yes, perspectives, yes. So these different ways of looking at a picture, these different dimensions, could be a combination of things, like a combination of discussion and language, for example. So we can develop some discussion points for speaking out of the picture, but also some language points. And I've mentioned SixWay Pictures. If we covered all 6 dimensions, all 6 ways, for every picture we looked at, it would be very exhaustive, in other words, very comprehensive. We'd have looked at the picture very thoroughly indeed, but it would also be not only exhaustive, but exhausting. I think you'd be worn out, you'd be tired and exhausted if every picture was subjected to every dimension. You'd think, oh, that's a little bit too much. So we don't want to use all 6 dimensions all the time. We're going to choose the ones that are most appropriate and what we are most appropriate to our aims and needs. So which of these dimensions do we want to talk about? Which ones do we want to explore for my aims as teacher and my learners' needs? So just that's a little caveat there. Just because we can do a picture in lots of different dimensions doesn't mean we have to do all of them all the time. So I'm going to stay with the same picture. So you're going to see it again. And we're going to look at the different dimensions. I said there are 6. So the first dimension is the objective dimension. What does the picture actually show? Just what can you see in the picture explicitly, objectively? Can you type into the chat box, please, a couple of the things that you can see in the picture, things that you can be sure about, objectively sure? Just type in the chat box a couple of the things that you can see objectively here. Gadgets, yes, good. That was Pavi, yes. Let's have a couple more. What can you see? Yep, it could be a phone store. It could be, yes, yes. Any more? Let's have a couple more. Yes, very good, yes. Some kind of transaction, exactly. Something is being sold or bought here. We're not entirely sure what it is, but we can see there's some kind of transaction. Good. Yeah, fine, good. So let's look at the next dimension now. Yep, we can see two ladies. Yes, exactly. Yeah, good. Let's look at the next one. This is, the next dimension is more speculative. More speculative. And so what could be going on here? Now we know that there are two ladies, yes, and we know that there are some gadgets, yes, and we know there's some kind of transaction taking place, yes, but are we sure that it's a phone store? Are you sure that that's the kind of shop it is? What other kind of shop could it be? Put it in the chat box if you can interpret the transaction differently, not necessarily a phone store, but what else could it be? Let's see. Anybody got any suggestions what it could be? Perfume, yes, there we go, good. Right, yes, good. So you can see now that you're not so sure about this. It could be this, it could be that. Yep, so now you're speculating more. Yep, notice your language differs. You could categorically say there are two ladies in the picture. You can categorically say that. Whereas you can't categorically say that it's a service center. You say it could be a service center, it might be a service center. Notice how your language changes when we move from the objective to the speculative. So your language changes, your learner's language has to change, and that's where perhaps you need to teach them how to do that. Another dimension is the past, but the past we can look at in two ways. So one way of looking at the past is what happened just before this picture was taken, in the minutes or even seconds before the picture was taken. So what do you think happened just before it was taken? The very recent past. Yes. The purchase, yes. Yes, maybe somebody made an inquiry, yes. Yeah. Okay, so these things happened before. But we can also look at the past in another way, historically. This picture was perhaps taken in the year 2020, for example, and it maybe shows a transaction. It perhaps is transaction of perfume. These are all your speculations. But if we go back from 2020 to 1970, we go back 50 years, how was this transaction made 50 years ago? We can look at the historical background. So how did people buy things in the past? What did they use a lot more than perhaps they use now? If you bought some perfume in the past, you might, how would you purchase it? Might be exchange, right, very good, yes. If we go a long way back, we go back to exchange, yes. Oh, that's, you're looking more now at interpretations of the picture. I'm asking how would you buy something in 1970? You wouldn't buy it like this, because this technology didn't exist in 1970. Barter system, right, exactly. So maybe cash, exactly, yes. So in the past, people bought things in different ways. They used cash a lot more. They used the barter system, yeah. But nowadays, many people, not everybody, uses some kind of mobile transaction. Yeah, good. So that's 3A and 3B. What happened just before the picture was taken, a minute or so before, and in the past? How were things bought in the past? So if we can look at the past, we can look at the future. What's going to happen next in the future? So what do you think is going to happen in the next minute or two after this picture was taken? What's going to happen in the next minute or two, do you think? Some suggestions. Yep, the payment is made, right? Yeah. The transfer, yes. The transaction fails. Very good indeed. Yes, that happens quite often. Yes, good idea. Yeah. So the system goes down, right? Good. Okay. Yeah. So you can see that we can predict. Yes, I know that the bar systems before 1970. Yes, I was just thinking about the past generally, just looking back further historically. Yeah, I take your point. Yeah. Okay, so if we can look at what happens next in the future in the next minute or so, we can also look at what will happen in the future in the longer term future. Not in the next minute or so, but in the next 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. So how do you think people will buy things 20 years from now? Will it be like this, or will there be some new system, do you think? Yeah. Yeah, more online. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you can see now we're starting to explore the different dimensions, the objective, the speculative, the past in 2 different ways, the future in 2 different ways. Here's the 5th dimension, the micro level. This means I'm going to look at the picture very personally, how it affects me, what it's like in my life locally, where I live. So where you live in India, and I know that people here from all over India, where you live, how do you buy things? Do you buy things like this? Or do you still use cash? Or do you use a credit card? How do you do it yourself? That's the micro level, the personal level. Yeah. Is there anyone here at the moment who buys things like this using a mobile phone for the transaction? Does anyone do this? For example, if Apple have what's called Apple Pay, you just click your phone and it pays. Yes, someone does. Yeah, good. Yeah. So that's the micro level. Me, my life, my town, my school, my job, whatever, it's me. But if there's a micro level, of course, there's also going to be a macro level, the bigger picture. So the global aspect of a picture. What's it like in other countries, etc. Okay, all right. So let's have a look at the next one. We've got the 6 dimensions there, so let's now go through them again. So the first one, the objective dimension, we've done that, we mentioned that. And so the language for the objective dimension will include things like present tenses. There are 2 ladies. She is using a touchscreen. She is holding a phone. They'll use descriptive language. Yeah? It looks very modern. I think it could be at an airport, duty-free shop. We're going to use lots of indicative forms. What we can see, it is this. And in the second dimension, the more speculative one, we're going to use different language. We're going to say things like, it may be, it might be. This may be an airport. This may be a shopping mall. It looks as if it's some perfume that she's buying. Perhaps the transaction isn't working. I've had a request there from Sarata to go to the previous slide. I can do that. Let me just see if I can go back. Can you just tell me what you'd like on the previous slide, Sarata? Just tell me. Is that okay? Do you need to see it for longer, or do you have a question? If you can just tell me, is that okay? Can I move to the next slide now, or do you need a bit more time with this picture? Just let me know. Can I move now? Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next picture now, so if that's okay. Okay, so as we said, it's the, thank you, thanks. It's the speculative one. It may be an airport, it may be a shopping mall, it could be perfume. It looks as if it's perfume. Perhaps it's perfume. Yep, exactly, yes. Maybe she's trying to make payment, yeah, okay. It must be perfume because of the shape of the box, etc. And we're going to use different forms, aren't we? We're not, rather than using indicatives, it is and it isn't, we're going to use things like it could be and it might be. Yeah. So we're going to use different grammar. And your learners are going to use different grammar, which is more to the point, I think. Okay, so let's have a look now at the next dimension. Oh, sorry, before we move, let's just look at a quick slide here that shows some different exponents for speculating. Remember, I mentioned exponents, the different ways that we express a function. So it could be, it might be, it may be. We've got 3 exponents there. It must and can't be, and so on. So exponents then are the different ways, the different language forms that we use in order to express the same function. So if I want to speculate, that's my function, speculation, but I can do it in different ways using different language, different grammar, and these are called exponents of that function. So here we've got on the screen, on the card, quite a number of exponents for speculation. And your learners will need to know those, won't they? If they're going to talk about that picture speculatively, they'll need this language. So now we can see how a picture can have a very strong language focus, the exponents for speculation. Okay. Third dimension, remember that was the one which is talking about the past, but the recent past, just before it was taken. The language will include things like she may have just handed it to the assistant, or she may have asked her for her code. She could have taken it from the shelf. She might have asked if she can pay electronically, and so on. And it might use some hypothetical conditionals, like if she had done this, perhaps she would have done that. Whereas if we look at the past historically, we're going to use words like ago. 20 years ago, people used a lot more cash. 100 years ago, people used the barter system. People used to pay in cash a lot more than they do now. In the past, people would pay in cash. And contrast that with the present. So notice again, we get different language with the different focus. All of this is the kind of thing that your learners will need to practice. We'd also maybe have things like changes, how things were in the past and how they're different now. In the future, remember the future, what happens next? Well, the language will include things like going to. She's going to try again. She's going to put it in a bag. She's going to ask for a receipt. Yeah. She's going to ask if she can exchange it, or whatever it is that you think is going to happen. Or she will. She'll put it in a bag and then she'll leave the shop. Or she might, she could. So again, what I'm suggesting is that the picture can talk about the future using different future forms. Yeah. And for the long-term future, the same idea, except of course they're more long-term. So again, we can use going to. Again, we can use will, but also things like will be doing and things like that. In 20 years' time, people will be buying much more online in 20 years from now. So the future progressive, the future continuous. In 20 years, people might well not buy things in shops at all. We might use conditionals as well, future conditionals, and also make contrasts between now and the future. Finally, quickly, the fifth dimension, remember that's the personal dimension, me, myself, my life. So what's the situation locally in the town where I live, in the city where I live, or in the state where I live? That's local. Yeah? So what's it like here in Switzerland? Personally, I much prefer buying things, paying in cash, personally. My family and friends. My parents, they don't use these new technologies at all, but I do, I like them. Or in my job or my school. Now, this isn't really fit for school, this particular picture, but you can imagine that some pictures will fit that. Whereas the macro level is the bigger level. So it's looking at things like, what's the situation like in South India generally, or in India, the whole country, or in Asia, or globally? So the bigger picture. And the general picture, the general trend is towards online transactions. The big issues, security and issues like fraud and so on. Trends, how things are moving globally or in India. Yeah, so we can see now we've had there all those dimensions. Now you've been looking at that same picture now for a few minutes and you're probably by now a little bit tired of that picture. So that's what I mean about don't feel that we have to do every dimension in every detail. Your learners will be exhausted, you'll be exhausted. So you pick the ones that you think are best and for your needs and aims, or aims and needs. So let's have a look now to a new picture. You'll be glad to see it's a new picture now. So here it is, a different picture. And I'm going to ask you to have a look at it. I think the first two steps are always good. What can you see objectively and what can you speculate about? But after that, I think you need to choose different dimensions. So can you go to the chat box, please, and tell me a couple of things that you can see objectively in the picture, step one, or a couple of things that you can speculate about, more interpretive, in step two. So use the chat box now, please, to do that. Tell me what you can see, step one, objectively. And yes, right, explaining, good. Or you can talk about what's speculative. To educators, yes, okay. Team lead, explaining, yes, right, good, yes. Presentation, good. So notice we're getting lots and lots of ideas coming in here. Now, you're giving me all these ideas. Yes, very objective. Yes, Pavin, a whiteboard and a marker. That's extremely objective. That's what we can see, definitely. Some of the others are more speculative, like we don't know that they're architects, but they could be. Yes, he might have asked about questions, maybe clarifying something that's unclear. Yes. Yes. So explaining, as said already. Now notice how much you're giving me here from your side. All of these things in the chat box are all your responses to my question of what you can see and what you could interpret. So you're giving me all of this language, all of these ideas. Your learners can, and then you as the teacher can work with what they give you. Yep. So what I want to do is get the learners to be opening up and putting things into the domain of the classroom. Yes, left-handed. Yes, she is. Well done, well spotted. Yes, good. Okay, now you can see here we could develop that picture a tremendous amount. We haven't time today, unfortunately, to go into it in every detail that we could, but you can see here how it works and how quickly people will react, and your learners can do the same. So what you need to do is have a picture, show it to them, and encourage them to do steps 1 and 2. Yeah? But after that, I think it's always good to do steps 1 and 2. What can you see objectively, and what can you speculate about? So do the first 2 steps. But after that, remember, we have the past and the future and the micro and the macro. I think you have to decide which ones you want to do. So you have to decide after that which dimensions you want to go in because of your language aims or the topic or whatever. And just to repeat what I said before, if we do all 6 aims in every detail, your learners will be exhausted and you will be exhausted. It's just too much with one picture. So let's use it, do something with it, do a bit more with it, and then that's fine. That's enough. Yeah. So for example, with this one, what topic could this picture be introducing, do you think? Can you type in the chat box what topic learners could discuss from this picture? Can you give me some suggestions of a topic? We've had a few already, I think, in the previous part of the chat box. Yes, good. Project design, exactly. And you can see that could be a very appropriate image for college students, engineering college or things like this, yes. Or IT, yes, upcoming projects, good. Yes, constructing a building, yep. Yes, data analysis, good. Now we can see here that we're getting into this topic now of perhaps things to do with college education. Yes, strengths, weaknesses, etc. Good. Yeah, so the picture is generating these topics and you can get your learners in the same way that you're doing now to be suggesting, and then you as the teacher can then move into the topic where you want to follow up, in which direction you want to go. Good. Which of the dimensions could you develop here? Remember, we've got the past, short-term and long-term. We've got the future, short-term and long-term. We've got the micro level and we've got the macro level. Those were dimensions 3, 4, 5, and 6. For you, which way would you go with this picture? Would you go into the past or the future or the micro or the macro? Where would you go if you were using this picture with some of your learners, whether they're at school or college? Which way would you go? Past, future, micro, macro? That's your decision. Future, right, yes, developments, yep, that's the way to go. We're going to look at how things might develop in future, yes, right. And then that's your focus now of looking at this picture and pushing the learners into thinking about the future, right, yes, we've got lots of futures coming up there, yeah, good, okay. But of course, there are other things as well. Yes, good one, nice, yes, past, what made them get into this discussion? Yeah, what was the stimulus for this meeting by the whiteboard, you know? Yeah, good. Nice idea. So we've got some good ideas coming down. You can see that some of you would go in one direction, some would go in another direction. That's entirely your decision according to your aims and the students' needs. Yeah, I think the picture is capable of all sorts of different exploitations. Okay. Good. I think that's enough, though, of 6-way pictures. I think you've perhaps seen that enough. So let's move on and have a look at a different kind of picture now and a different thing you can do, something totally different. Okay, so I'm just going to move on. And here we've got a vocabulary focus. I've got a red line that's appeared there somewhere. I'm not quite sure where that came from, the red line at the bottom of the picture. I think someone was perhaps annotating at some point. I don't know if I can clear that. I'm just going to try to clear that annotation. Clear all drawings. Yes, it's gone. That's good. Okay, good. Okay, so back to our picture. Here's a photograph I took myself. You can see my photo credit there. And I've just used it as a labeling activity. So what I did was I took the photograph and then I made it into a PDF so that I could use the annotate tool in the PDF. And I used the little text box in the PDF and the arrow box, the arrow tool. And so I could label my picture like that. Yeah. And there are lots of other tools you can use to annotate pictures. I'm sure you've got your own way of doing it and your own favorites. As you can see, I've labeled half a dozen different kinds of fruit, and I've got some tomatoes and some fish in there. So obviously the level here is pretty low level. It's going to be something like A1 or A2, low level from learner level. So beginner, elementary, and they're learning fruit and basic food vocabulary. In class, you could add to it. You could have the basic one like this, and then with your learners, add more labels as you annotate the image and develop it with your learners. But you can see here a very nice, simple picture, nice, simple activity. Oh, there's somebody coming in. Right, somebody's having a go at annotating. I'm going to have to remove your annotation, I'm afraid, otherwise we'll have drawings all over. Okay, so I'm just going to clear it. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, annotating a picture. And this is sometimes where the pictures you take yourself are really good, because you can go out into the street, into the market, take some photographs of what you want, and then get home to your computer and do a little bit of labeling with the picture. Okay, here's another nice vocabulary activity coming up. Oh, sorry. Oh, I've lost my mouse briefly. I'm sorry, just a moment. Oh, that's what I needed to do. I needed to get my mouse back. Okay, let's just move on now to the next picture. Okay, so this is called Kim's Game. Do you know Kim's? Have you heard of this? Kim's Game? It comes from a novel. The name Kim is the name of a boy in a novel called Kim, written by Rudyard Kipling, who was a British writer who was born in India and wrote about India. He wrote the Jungle Book stories, for example, and Kim. And Kim, young Kim, is a boy of Indian and Irish descent, and he's going to become a spy for the British against the Russians up in Afghanistan, or the northwest border frontier. Anyway, as part of his training in being a spy, he obviously couldn't write things down. He had to remember them. So Kim's Game worked like this. Young Kim was shown a tray, and on the tray were 20 objects. And he had 1 minute to look at the tray, but he couldn't touch anything, just look. And then a cloth or a towel was put over the tray, and he had to recall how many of the 20 things he could remember to train his memory. That's why it's called Kim's Game. It was a kind of training game for future spies. Not quite what we're going to do with it. We show it for 1 minute. You have 1 minute to look at the picture, and then you hide it. You take it off the screen, or you switch the screen off, or you hide it anyway. Okay, so that's the basic idea. So we have a minute, and the learners are not allowed to write anything down. They just have to look and try and remember. Then you hide it, and then the learners, perhaps in pairs, because it's a nice pair activity to do, in pairs, they try to recall as many of the details of the picture as they can. So they try to remember what she's selling, all the different things she's selling. They try to remember details like the clothes she's wearing, or other things, anything that they can remember from the picture in pairs. And then in class, we ask one of the pairs to describe it and see how well they can do. And of course, the other students can come in and correct. Or we can ask questions like, is there a pineapple in the picture? Or what color is her sari? And so on. Okay. So that's a level you can do at most levels. I think it's obviously younger learners will like it. It could even be interesting for older learners because it's more playful, more fun. Yeah, so it's called Kim's Game. In Kim's Game, you need a picture with lots of different vocabulary items in it, so that there's plenty for people to try to remember. Yeah. Notice it's also good for practicing language, like is there or are there. So for low-level learners, you can have is there a pineapple? Are there any grapes? And things like that. Okay, so you can be doing some basic grammar practice as well as vocabulary practice. And that's a photograph I took in Mediré a couple of years ago now, opposite the hotel where I stayed in Mediré. Okay, so that's Kim's game. A similar sort of thing can be done, but not a memory test, by using a picture which shows lots of things. So this is a picture taken at home. Is it my home? I don't know. I'll leave that to you. So what I'd like you to do in the chat box, please, can you type in to the chat box one or two of the things that you can see in the picture? What can you see? Type into the chat box, please, a few things that you can see. Yep, a trash can, right. Yes, good, yes, right. Yep. Yeah, good, mantelpiece, nice. Yep, very good. Yeah, so lots of suggestions there of what we can see. All right. Okay, good. Now, can you type in, please, one or two prepositions that might be useful to describe this picture? One or two prepositions, please. You've given me lots of nice objects. Can you give me some prepositions? Yes, good. Yes, good, lovely. So there we go, lots and lots of prepositions coming in. Right, so now you can see how this is going to work with your learners. You get them to tell you what they can see, and then we start to push the prepositions around and get them to say what's on, under, next to, beside, between, etc. Yes, good. What could you speculate, please, about this picture? Can you make any speculations based on what you can see? Can you speculate about the person who lives here? What can you speculate about? You can see someone's home, you can see someone's living room. Yes, now that's good. Now there's Sarata. You said the interests of the owner. Can you say what they might be? I like your comment. The interests of the owner. I like that. And organized, yes, good. The person is very organized. Yes, you can speculate that. Everything is in its proper place. Yes, music and art. Yes, good. So the person's interested in music. Good. Yes, and in reading, good. Right, we're starting to speculate now. We don't know this is a fact. We're not absolutely sure about this, but we can speculate, certainly. Yeah? Okay. All right. Okay, good. Very nice. So let's have a look now at the board. So household vocabulary, we can get some of that in. Prepositions I mentioned, exponents of interpretation and speculation. So the person must be a music lover. They must be a voracious reader. Yeah. The carpet could show interests. Good. Lives in a cold country. Yes, very good. Yes. You wouldn't find too many living rooms like that in Mediré, I don't think. Okay, good. And finally, the topic could be home, lifestyle, etc. Yeah, so there we are. So there's a simple picture. And notice how we've moved it away from just describing the picture, what's in it. We've moved beyond that to things like more grammar with prepositions, speculation about what we could guess about the life of the person, what they're like, what kind of person they are. We can move into the topic of home and lifestyle. Would you like this to be your living room? And so on. Yeah, home sweet home, nice. Yes, good. Yeah. So notice how one picture generates a lot of material. So try not to annotate, try not to draw on the picture, because you get these little red lines, annotation lines. I'm just going to clear those again. Okay, there we go. All right. You can do that yourself when you're doing it with your own presentations, and draw on as much as you like. Yeah. Okay, good. So somebody liked that activity. Yes, good. I'm glad you liked it. It's something which is simple to do, but which is very generative. Okay, let's try the next one. Same idea, but this time, rather than focusing on things, we're going to focus on people. So I'd like you, in the same way that you just did, can you tell me what you can see objectively and what it could be more speculatively, please? Let's have some more objective things that you are sure about, that you can see, and some things which are a bit more speculative. So the second dimension. Right, good. Mother and son. Is that a fact or is that a speculation? Okay. Solving a puzzle. Good. Yes, keep them good. Right. Showing something. Yes. Pointing something out. Good. Nice. Yeah. Good. Lakshmi said it's mother and son, which it certainly could be. Okay. Good. All right. Yeah. So notice again now we can start to have vocabulary about what people look like. Yes, again, Pavin mentioned some objective things. There's a sofa, there's a newspaper, absolutely. We can have simple and continuous tenses, like he's showing her something in the paper, he's smiling, she's looking at it, she's also smiling, and so on. Ah, the son's achievement in the newspaper, ha, that must be speculative, I think. Nice idea. He's reading for her, that's a really nice idea. And also, I like that too, geriatric care, looking after older people. Yes. So you notice you've got some really nice dimensions starting to develop now, how we could interpret this picture, going way beyond what it simply shows in a sort of limited sense. Yes. So lots of opportunity to interpret. And the topics there, relationships and family, which some of you have already mentioned. Geriatric care, that was a nice idea I saw there. Yes, okay. So this is very similar to the previous one that we had with the living room, except we're focusing more on people now than on things. Yeah, okay, all right. So two nice, simple, but very generative activities. Here's another one to have a look at. Let's try this one. You might recognize that shop. You've seen it already. You saw it a few slides ago. So in this one, we can see two men. So let's have a focus on feelings and emotions. So here's a potential vocabulary task. I'm going to give you some adjectives. And which of these adjectives do you think match with the picture? Which of these adjectives I'm going to show you do you think match? So here they come. So overjoyed, bored, angry, fed up, sad, irritated, frightened and thoughtful. Bored comes up. Lethargic and rishy. Yes, that wasn't on my list, but it's a very nice adjective. Right. Yeah, nice. Yes. Okay, a bit more positive there, but lots of fed ups coming there. Yes. Right. Good. Great. So notice how we're now getting our learners. If you do this with your learners, you're getting them to evaluate the picture, evaluate the adjectives, and say which one goes, which one doesn't. As Pavin says, irritated, bored, and fed up come all up. Okay, great. I'm getting some new ones coming in now. Disappointed and exhausted. So that shows another potential of this, that the learners can add to the adjectives that you've given. Yeah. So you've added two new ones there, disappointed and or exhausted came into the chat box. Here's another vocabulary task. make nouns from the adjectives. So bored, angry, sad, irritated, patient, frightened, thoughtful, and relaxed. Can you make me any nouns there from any of those adjectives, please? Just choose one of the adjectives and give me the noun. So for example, if I took sad, I could say sadness. Anger, great. Boredom, yes. First two coming up straight away. Yep, good. Yep, good. Irritation comes up. Okay. Patience, very good. Now notice how useful this is. My learners are usually quite good at adjectives, but less good at the abstract nouns that go with those adjectives. So this is a nice way to generate some adjectives and then generate some nouns from the adjectives. So we're getting a sort of vocabulary focus here, all coming out of this picture. And as we've seen in the chat box, you are actually adding more adjectives to the picture as well. So it's also generative from the learners in that respect as well. Yeah. So what we need for this is pictures of people showing emotions, give the learners some options, ask them to match up which ones match, which ones don't match, and then maybe take it a bit further, nouns to adjectives. You can ask them to make sentences. You can ask them to use some of those adjectives in a short text, whatever. Okay, and again, all coming out of just one picture. Now, the pictures we've had so far have been relatively concrete, you know, living rooms and shops and things. How about this picture? Have a look at it for a moment. And I'm going to ask you to think about it in a kind of metaphoric way or a symbolic way. So for example, here's my first, oh, nice, already got something in there, calm before the storm, I like that. How about this? What could the boat represent? So focus now on the boat here in the foreground and just tell me what the boat could represent, do you think? What could it be? What could it symbolize? What could it be a metaphor for? Safe and sound. Journey is nice. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Some nice ideas coming in. Some focusing on safety and security. Yeah. Okay, that's the boat. Okay, what about the sea? What might the sea represent? What sort of symbolic? Yes, we've got, oh, yes. Yes, very different ideas. Some are very positive, some are different. Some say calm and some say busy. Interesting, lots of different interpretations. Right, yes. So the sea could be uncertain and turbulent, yes. Not in this picture, but it could be. Yeah, good. Yeah, so look how much is coming in here from when I asked you to interpret the picture, to use your imagination. Yeah, lots and lots of different things. Some of your suggestions are very different to others that other people have made, which is good. We don't want everyone to say exactly the same thing with a picture like this. Some people are interpreting this as voyages in a positive way or more, what shall we say, scary way, as someone wrote. Okay, here's an interesting question. Can you relate this picture to you or your life? Is there any connection for you when you see this picture? Do you relate this somehow to yourself in any way? Yes. Yes, Nagma says yes. Ah, interesting in COVID times. Yes, very much. Yeah. Yes. All right. And here's a last thing you can do with such a picture. You can ask your learners to give a title to a picture, to see how they summarize it in the title. Yeah. What kind of words? I think some of the things you've said already could be the title, by the way. You've made a lot of suggestions, some of which could be good titles for this image. Yes, there's one. Yeah. Ah, that's interesting. Structured versus unstructured work pattern. Yes, that's a very interesting approach to it. Yeah. Right. Yes, life is a journey. Yes. Yeah. So again, notice how this picture, remember at the beginning, I said that pictures fall into different categories. Not all pictures are best suited to everything. So this picture is really well suited, I think, to this kind of more imaginative interpretation. And you've come up with lots of very different and very interesting suggestions. So that would be the same from your learners. We can push this a little bit further. Oh, that's very interesting, Saya. A journey to death is alone. That's a very philosophical view of the picture. Yes. Well, what about this? Here's my question. What feelings, what moods, what emotions does this image evoke for you? When you see this, what do you feel? So some nice ideas again coming in. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So again, lots of different interpretations. Some are very positive, calmness and hope. Yeah. Strong and stubborn. Light will shine through. Interesting. Yes. Okay. So would you use this image if you had the option to use this image? Would you use this image for these things? Would you use it as a picture in a calendar, or as a postcard to send to somebody, or as a birthday card for somebody, or as a different kind of card, not a birthday card, but some other kind of card, the cover of a book, a shopping bag with this image on it, a CD cover, if you still have CDs, I don't think they're so current anymore, a travel poster. Which ones would you use this image for? Good, yes, depends what I want to convey. Exactly, yes. That's what Nagma said, yes. So what could it be that you want to convey with this picture? Book cover, yeah. Suggestion? Yes, motivational picture, nice idea. Yep, yes, good. So again, we've got different interpretations. Yes, as Nagma says, all of them, if it matches the content and context. Exactly, yeah. So now we can start to explore why this picture might be good for some things. Mobile, good idea, mobile wallpaper. Yeah, yeah. So again, notice how, again, you are interpreting the picture in different ways. You're coming up with different approaches to it. All of these are things that your learners can do as well. And finally, as we said before, we can always give a content title to it. So here's a new picture for you with some emotions. So here we go. So now it's your turn. Here's my picture. And I'd like you to tell me what emotions and feelings this picture evokes for you. So what does this evoke? Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. So some nice ideas. Yeah. Tranquility's come a couple of times, and calmness. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Life is but a dream. That's another philosophical view there. Yes, romantic. Yeah, lovely. Yes, yes. Some lovely ideas coming in. Now, again, you're giving me these ideas simply by looking at the picture. So your learners can do the same. You could say, well, they don't have the words for it yet. So that's what you can teach them. You can teach them the word tranquil. You can teach them the word placid. Yeah. You can teach them fixed expressions like away from the madding crowd. Yeah, great. Next question, does it remind you of something in your life? Does this have a personal connection? Do you connect this with anything in your life? Is there something that it connects with for you personally? Oh, that's a nice, thank you for the compliment, Nagma, yes. But if you're taking pictures, you also need nice things to take pictures of. So this was a picture taken near in Tamil Nadu, near to Tanjore, is it Tanjore? In the river that's outside the city. Yes, my grandparents' place, yes. Our field, yes. Look, lovely things going back to your childhood and your family, yes. Yeah. So again, you're having these associations, your learners will have associations. So all of the things that you're doing, your learners do as well. Favorite spot to have a drink, yes, okay, right. Or other associations as well. So sometimes it might be with other things, yeah. Yeah, exactly, it depends on your frame of mind, as Nagma says, yes, it does. And so sometimes on one day you react differently to another day. And that's a very important thing about life, isn't it? The same picture, the same thing will trigger different responses at different times of the day, on different days of the week, different parts of your life, how you're feeling, and so on. These things aren't fixed. Oh, lovely, childhood, going to wash the clothes. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this river here was a hotel actually where I stayed for a couple of days called the Ideal River Hotel, the Ideal River, where I had spent a very happy couple of days when I visited Tanjore. Okay, great. So lots of very personal things there. Now here's another way of looking at pictures. We've looked at what's in them. So this is going to be a bit of a paradox. We're now going to look at what's not in them. So have a look at this picture and it shows, well, you can see what it shows. My question is, what do you think is not in the picture? So encourage your learners to speculate about what they can't see. So what do you think is to the left of Herd? What do you think is to the right? What do you think is behind the photographer? I mean, I'm standing there, but what's behind me? Learners comes in, audience comes in, right, okay. Yeah, what's to the left of her, do you think? Possibly, or to the right of her? What might there be? More students, right, yes. Oh, there's me, yes, that's a good point. Yes, I'm there, yep. Right, yeah. So you can focus on what isn't in the picture. Ah, right. Maybe adult learners, nice idea there, yes. Yeah, there's a door, right. Possibly to the left, possibly. Right, you think there's a fan in the room, good. Yes, so here you're using your knowledge of typical room like this. Yes, 9th grade. Good. You spotted that on the board, right? I was just going to ask, how do you know they're 9th standard? But the board tells you it's 9th standard. Very good. Yeah, good. Yeah, great. So notice what you're doing is, and that's just exactly my point there. When someone said it was 9th grade or 9th standard, yeah, there's a clue in the picture. The numeral 9 tells you. Yeah. Okay. Great. So here we have another way of looking at images. Yes, good. Magma is very observant. Yes, the learners are sitting on the ground. Yes, yeah, good. That's very observant. Right. So again, here we're focusing now not on what pictures actually show, but what they don't show. Okay, so we're getting lots of different. Oh, yep, evening. Okay. Right. Some nice speculations, yeah? And notice just how rich this is coming up now. All the things that you're suggesting, we could move into different language, different vocabulary. Okay, here's the next picture. It's called Listen and Draw. Okay, listen and draw. So here are how it works. The learners can't see the picture. So only one person can see it, either the teacher or one of the learners. The other students cannot see the picture. They just have a piece of paper and a pen. So the teacher or the learner, the person who can see it, describes it and the others draw it as best they can. So remember, the learners can't see the picture only the teacher or one of the learners. And this person describes it as best they can so that the other people can draw it. So you're going to say things like, well, there is a car in the middle, a red car in the middle of the picture, and there's a big building behind with 3 floors, I think, and so on. There is a table with some chairs, etc., etc. Then you show them the picture, and they can see how close their drawing is to the picture. And then we can work on vocabulary, we can work on prepositions, we can work on all sorts of language things. Or the learners work in pairs. One of the pair has the picture and the other person doesn't. So now we've got one learner A, student A has the picture, student B doesn't, and we do the same process except in pairs. Yes, spatial relationships, exactly. Yeah. Or we can do it in groups. We have one learner with the picture and then a group of 4 students, her peers, and they all draw as best they can and then compare. Yeah. So what you need for this kind of thing is a picture with several objects in it, with some kind of spatial relationship, as has been mentioned in the chat box, and with some opportunity, I think, for prepositions and, as you say, spatial relationships. Yeah. And then we can work on how to talk about a picture. So, for example, to do this picture well, you'd have to know things like in the foreground and in the background, fixed expressions that describe pictures. In the foreground, there's a table with 2 chairs and with an orange tablecloth. Yeah. In the background, there's a building, an old-fashioned building, a European building. It looks very classical, very old. I don't know how old, but it's old. It's not modern. Yeah, and so on. As someone said, it will be hilarious if they don't understand the description. Good point. Sometimes when I first did this, way back when I worked in England, we used to call this Picasso. You know, the Spanish painter Picasso. He's beginning of the 20th century. He was very famous for drawing rather cubist abstract pictures where a woman's face had got both her eyes on one side of the face and her nose on the other side and so on. That's why they were called Picasso, because the learners came up with these hilarious pictures where they didn't get the drawing quite right. But it's fun. Young learners love it, and older learners secretly love it because they like to do this kind of thing, even if they're older. Adults enjoy it, not every day, but they enjoy it. Okay, so that's called listen and draw. Here's another one which involves some listening, and it's fun as well. Like, yes, exactly, it is fun. Here's another one. For this one, you need, let's say, 4 pictures, and I've numbered them, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You've seen one of the pictures already, so I've got 4 pictures. And as you look at them, you'll notice that they've got something in common. There's something similar about those pictures. What I'm going to do is describe one of the pictures, but not tell you which one it is that I'm describing, and see if you can decide which number it is. Is it picture 1, picture 2, picture 3, or picture 4? Okay, so here we go. In my picture, the one I'm describing, there is clearly a market scene and outdoors, and there's lots of things for sale. There is some things are like fruit, for example, I can see, and vegetables, most probably. I think some of the there's no market stand though. The things are on the pavement or on the floor, not on a stand. And there are several people in the picture, and also it seems to be okay, right? So we can see now people going, they're reducing it, they think, oh, it's not this, it's not that. Okay, you get the idea of which one I'm talking about. So what you need for this is 4 pictures which are quite similar, If you give it away too quickly, of course, it becomes very easy. So, for example, if I said, in my picture, there's a woman wearing a blue sari, then, of course, it's picture 3, you know, and there's nothing to say. But when I talk about fruit and vegetables and market and outdoors, it could be any of the pictures. And then I start to say things like, the vegetables are on the pavement or on the floor, or on the street. Then it says, well, it must be 1 or 2 probably, and so on. Yeah. And I can then narrow it down and say which one it actually is. So I could say, I could continue talking and saying, and all I can see some foreign tourists as well in the picture. And they think, right, it must be picture 2 now, and so on. Okay, so that's which one I'm describing. And that's for listening skills. Okay, let's have a look at the next. Here's another one, which is similar idea. I've put it all onto one slide, but essentially it works a little bit differently. It's called What's the Full Picture? So the learners don't see all 3 pictures. They see just this picture on the left first, only the one on the left, the smallest one. And they have to say what they think is in the rest of the picture. Then you show them picture 2, the one in the middle, and ask them the same question. Okay, now you've got this. Now what do you think is in the picture? If you look very carefully at the right-hand side of this middle picture, you can see something, which I included just a little teeny bit of it. And also down in the bottom right-hand corner, you can also see things if you really concentrate on it. And then in the third picture, when you show it, then you can, right, there's a bicycle, right, I thought so. Yeah. What do you think's in the rest of the picture? Well, that's enough now. Let's have a look at the next picture. Here is the full picture. That's what all of it is. And eventually we get there. So we have to learn the speculating of, as they look through the first picture, and then the second picture is a bit bigger, the third picture a bit bigger, and then the final picture. Yeah. So again, it's really good for speculating and expressing, I think it's this, it could be that, perhaps there's this. Yeah. Again, notice how I'm really pushing the learners to speculate, use speculative language. Yep. Try to say, not just it is and it isn't. Yeah. Okay then, so that's the full picture. So for that, it's a little bit more complicated in that you have to show each picture separately. Of course, you can't show them all at once, so there's no task. All right. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. We're staying with reading and listening. The next one is, I've got lots of different images here. They're not connected, by the way. I just wanted to economize on slides, not have too many slides. With a reading or listening task, it's not likely that you will be able to find a picture that exactly matches your reading or listening task, but it could be close. So for example, this first picture here on the top left, I could use this picture to help to predict the text. They're going to read a text about the pros and cons of flying, the for and against of flying. And I can use this picture as a prompt before they read the text. So what do you think the text is going to say about the advantages and disadvantages of flying? Or if I take the picture on the right, I could use this as a contrast. The text is all about flying, but this picture isn't flying. This picture, how this picture contrasts with the text. Next picture on the right, maybe the text is all about shopping. And I use this picture to take it further, to extend the topic of more ways of shopping, more aspects of shopping. And finally, the last one, to choose which picture best matches. So in my text, I've got a text about traveling, but one of the texts mentions going to the seaside and seeing the ocean. So that picture on the right is a better match. Now, this all depends entirely, of course, on what your text or your listening material actually contains. And I can't show you that. All I can show you is how you can use a picture with a reading text or a listening text to extend it, to predict it, to contrast with it. So you can use pictures even though they're not actually taken from the text as such. Okay, all right. Next up, let's move now into a different area. A day in the life. We're going to look at some focus now on narratives tenses and links. So here's my picture, very familiar to you. You can see which state of India we're in, at least from the, so here we go. So establish where the picture may have been taken and who the man could be. I think you'll be able to do that very well. And build up a list now of his daily life. What does he do in a day, a typical day? And then focus on some useful language that you might need, like first and later, and at lunchtime and in the afternoon. And then finally create a day in the life of this person. Okay, so yes, definitely South India. Yeah, you can even see the state if you look carefully. Okay, so that's called a day in the life. So we have a picture, we build up from it a list of activities, and then we write a day in the life. And the students can write that for homework, for example. Okay, or a similar one uses several pictures. So here I've got 5 pictures, and it's a photo story of a tourist's day in Kochi. And there's my 5 pictures, name on them, but they are my pictures. I went to Kochi a couple of years ago. Well, a few years ago now. And so we have a day in the life of. So we start off top left, what do they do in the morning? And then what do they do afterwards? And then afterwards and afterwards and afterwards. Okay, so a day in the life of a tourist in Kochi. I think you need to have 4 or 5 pictures. Don't have too many. If you have 8 or 9 pictures, it becomes too long, too complicated. I think 4 or 5 is fine. 4 is fine. For low-level learners, even 3 is fine when you have younger learners which are not quite as competent yet. So that's a photo story. Okay, just a quick note. We're coming up to 12 o'clock, which is, sorry, not 12 o'clock. We're coming up to 4:30 your time. And this session was due to last an hour and a half, but there was a little bit of extra time, I understood. So we're going to run over a little bit. I hope that's okay. A few minutes over 4:30 your time. So it's going to run a little bit longer. I hope that's okay. Okay, let's move on. Here's an idea that might be new for you, and it's called mini saga, which I don't know if you've heard of that. So a mini saga is a very short story. A saga is normally a very long story, and a mini saga is a short story. So in a mini saga, oh, someone knows them, great. Yes, I can see someone coming in, great. So fixed number of words. Yeah, Parvin said 50. It can be any number you like, Parvin. I've taken 70, but 50 is perfectly okay. So 50, 60, 70, whatever you like. Yeah, there's no, as long as it's fixed. Yep, I prefer 72. Yeah, give me just a bit more scope. Give the learners a list of 5 adjectives, 5 nouns, 5 verbs and 5 adverbs and 5 linking words. And these should be recent items. In other words, things from other recent lessons. So you've had some lessons maybe about transport and travel. So they've got some words, they know the word station, they know the word railway, etc., etc. So you give them these 5 adjectives, nouns, verbs, etc. And from those 25 words that you've given them, you must use 3 of each in their saga. So you've got to use 3 of the adjectives, 3 of the nouns, 3 of the verbs, etc. And then the rest you write yourself. Yeah. And they write a text of exactly 70 words. And that's the whole point of the mini saga. It's got to be 70, not 69 and not 71. Now, those of you who prefer 50 words, it's 50 and not 49 and not 51. It's 50, it's 60, it's 70. You set the rules. There's no problem if it's 50 words long. That's no problem at all. It's 60 is fine, 70 is fine, as long as it's pretty short. The idea is that they can write the text in class. Cambridge say 50. Okay, good point, Pavin. Yeah, I take your point. Yeah, that was their suggestion. Right, okay, so you can take 50, it's fine, no problem. Okay, so then they read out their story, they work on pairs, and then maybe vote on the best one. So this is how we get some classroom writing. Because it's short, 50 words, 60 words, 70 words, whatever, it can be done in class, and it's controlled. We've got some controlled vocabulary, but also some creative ideas. All right, so let's have a look. So I'm glad you know about that. I'm very pleased to see that you've come across mini sagas, and that's good. Yeah. Okay, here's one for you then. Here's the picture. So where's the mini saga going to go, do you think? What's this mini saga going to focus on? Some suggestions, please, in the chat box. Where can we go with this? Ah, okay, I see. Thanks, Nagma. Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you. So where can we go? Far away, right? Yes, we're going to travel somewhere. Yeah. Any emotions that might come into this mini saga? Everybody got any ideas of? Right, very nice indeed. Memory on the bench of a loved one. Very nice. Yes. So rather a sad story, perhaps, or at least a little bit melancholic, maybe. Yeah, but positive. It's a memory. It's a happy memory. Yes, nice idea. Yeah. Anybody got more ideas? I really like that one. Any more ideas? Friendship, yes, nice idea. Yes, nostalgic, yes, good. So we've got lots of things there to do with emotions, haven't we? With friendship, memory, yeah. So notice how a mini saga can be very sort of practical to do with the journey, but it can also be much more introspective, if you like, or reflective. Yeah. And I think these work from A2 upwards. I mean, obviously an A2 learner, elementary, is going to do quite a simple story, and 50 words is plenty for an A2 learner. Elementary, 50 is fine. But if the learners are, let's say, intermediate, then maybe 70 words. Okay. And it can also be, of course, given as homework. Yeah. Okay. So we've got some very nice ideas and some very different ways of approaching that. Okay, I'm just going to keep moving on so we do finish reasonably on time, a little bit late. Put yourself in the picture. Here's that lady again. You've met her before a couple of times. This time a slightly different shot. And we've got some microphone on there. We need to take that off. Okay, thank you. And you just put yourself in the picture. You become one of these people. You become one of the men, or you become the boy, or you become the lady, and you just tell the picture from her point of view. You talk about it as if you are her or him. Yeah. So it's a nice way of personalizing a picture. It's very imaginative. Boys can pretend to be girls. Girls can pretend to be boys. All sorts of things. You can be a shopkeeper. You can be a boy going on an errand, whatever. Yeah, it's just another way of using a picture and using your imagination. Another imaginative use is to use the picture for a mini dialogue. Now here are 4. These pictures are not connected. They're just 4 pictures of people talking. And in any one of the pictures, you can decide on a mini dialogue. A mini dialogue is maybe 3 lines for each person. So we have 3 lines for the old gentleman here and 3 lines for the lady. That's enough. 6 lines, 6-line dialogue is plenty. So mini dialogues. This again will work very well from elementary onwards. Oh, price is fixed. Very good. Okay, all right. Okay, so people are still coming back to the previous one there of the street scene, the street lady. She was a very friendly lady, by the way. We used to go to her every day or two to pick up some fruit, fresh fruit, and that's why the guys in the shop are all smiling, because they know us from previous days. It was in Mediré, near the American College in Mediré. opposite the Northgate Hotel, if anyone knows Meadowray. So, all right, yeah, so asking about health, all sorts of things, great, nice idea. So a picture, you don't need 4, I just gave you 4 to give you different kinds of situations. Here, this one perhaps a bit more business oriented, this one's a bit more social. Let's just go back. This one is, again, a bit social, and here, meeting in a supermarket. Okay, I've just got to keep moving on because of time. I don't want to overrun too much. We can use pictures to show a topic. So here, my topic could be focusing on education. So what kind of lesson is this? And how does it compare with a more typical classroom in India? I mean, the picture's obviously taken in India, but it's not, I think, a typical Indian classroom. And what are some of the benefits of learning like this? So notice now we're focusing on a topic, discussing a subject, not so much focusing on vocabulary or grammar or speculation, but talking about the topic that the picture helps to stimulate. Yeah. And remember, this is for your learners. So I've asked them, have you ever taught anyone? Now, of course, you have taught because you're teachers. But if we give this picture with a learner, we can say to your learners, have you ever taught anybody? And they may say, well, I taught my brother how to ride a bicycle, or I taught my sister how to count better because she was not very good at it, and so on. Yep. Good. So we're getting some responses there. Yep. Right. Yeah. So there's a topic lesson. And another kind of topic lesson is a bit unusual. Maybe I don't know what you'll think about this one. In this one, the picture is a bit strange, a bit unusual. It's not the kind of thing you normally see in photographs. So I thought it would be nice sometimes to use a more unusual picture, one that the students perhaps have never seen before, this kind of picture. So let's look at this one for a moment. And you can see that, well, it's a little bit unusual. So this one could be prompting all sorts of different things. Yes, someone's already come up with stuffed toys. Yes. Okay, so the topic could be, well, it could be the topic of families, couldn't it? There's clearly seems to be a family here with their washing. But what else could it be? Well, I don't know. Some of the animals are upside down. Some are not. Some are the right way around. Yeah. A family, yes. A kid's room outside, yes. Okay, or it could focus on childhood, couldn't it? On the toys. Somebody's mentioned stuffed toys already. So maybe the picture is a stimulus to childhood, discussing childhood. Yeah. Or maybe it just talks about the mundane aspect of everyday life, like someone. So I like the idea of using different pictures, different kinds of pictures, not always predictable ones that learners may not have expected. Okay, and to more or less, we're almost finished now, not long to go. One thing you can do is use your learners' own photos. Get your learners to take a photo for you, and let's use that. So why not? You can take photos, but your learners can take photos. So get your learners to share photos with you, and the rest. Your learners might like to share photos. So travel and holidays, for example, some pictures they took when they went to Chennai, or when they went to Kochi, or of their family, or of their friends and things they do together, or of places they've been to, or places they're interested in, or of a special interest or hobby they have. Remember, these are all your learners' own photographs. And then they could make a presentation, for example. So one of your learners takes a couple of pictures to represent her sport or hobby that she does, like netball or whatever it is. And then she does a little mini presentation at the front of the class for just 2 minutes, talking to the class, showing the pictures, talking about them. But the pictures come from her. Yeah. So that's using your learner's own photographs. Don't know if do you recognize that building in the photograph, by the way? Does anyone recognize what that building is? Just curious. Someone recognize it? Yes, I've got lots of pictures because I took lots of them in India when I come to India. As you can see, lots of them are Indian topics. Anyone recognize where it is? I'll give you a clue. It's in Tamil Nadu. I'll give you another clue. It's in Madurai. Okay, it's the Gandhi Museum in Madurai in Tamil Nadu. Okay, all right, we're going to finish off very quickly now because of time. I know that I don't want to overrun you too much. It's very important that your learners learn how to describe a picture. Remember some of those things like the drawing picture where they have to draw the car and the tables. It's very important that you teach your learners how to describe a picture. So useful language includes there is and there are, obviously, on the left, on the right, in the foreground, in the background. It could be, it may be, it might be, it looks like, perhaps, it's a kind of. So this is the kind of language your learners need in order to talk about pictures. Yeah. So if they can say on the left, there's a kind of building, in the background, there's a kind of car or whatever. Yeah. So how to describe a picture. So make sure you teach your learners how to do this, the language they need. And I think it's useful to have a 3-stage cycle for this. So we start off, we do the task, they describe it first. That's the first cycle. See how they do. Then ask them to do it first and see how they do. How well do they do it? Then have some self-assessment or feedback and check a bit of language. And then ask them to do the same task again. Now you can use the same picture even. I'm doing this when I'm learning a language. I don't mind doing exactly the same task again that I did 5 minutes ago. It's not boring for me at all, because the first time I did it the best I could, but I made mistakes and I didn't know things and I struggled a bit. Then the teacher comes in and helps me and helps the rest of us in the class. And then I do the task again, the same task, but this time I've got the advantage of what my teacher has helped me with. So I think the 3-stage cycle is a good thing to do. Finally, the last couple of pictures now, just as we close. One very nice thing to do with pictures is to take 2 pictures which share some features, but which also have some differences. So here, 2 pictures that I took, and they have something in common, but they have some big differences. Does anybody recognize where the picture was taken on the right? The picture on the right. Does anyone recognize that? Where is that? It's certainly Italy, yes. It's Venice, right, well done, Nagmar, yes, it's Venice with the gondola, incredible, yes. The right word for it as well, yeah. What about the picture on the left? That's going to be a little bit less recognizable. Picture on the left, anybody want to speculate where that was taken? Yes, UK, yes, you're right, that is the UK. Somewhere is the answer. Yes, that's good. That kind of covers lots of things. Okay, it's in the UK. In fact, yes, you can see a barge. Indeed, you can. Yeah, right. So it was taken where I come from in England, in fact, my hometown. And I was born just behind that building on the right there with the chimney behind it. You can see a sort of like a dome shape chimney. And you can see a building and some bushes, and I was born about 100 meters just behind that. So that's my hometown, and the canal. So comparing and contrasting places, or you can also compare and contrast people. Here I took 2 photographs which showed some similarities but some differences again, and you can see here that the focus now is less on the place and more on the people. So you need 2 pictures to contrast. And notice both of these pictures were taken from Unsplash. So I used Unsplash to find me 2 pictures of meetings, discussion with similarities and differences. You can see the picture on the left is pretty much certainly taken in India, or at least with Indian people, maybe in the United States, but or Canada, but there's certainly a strong Indian connection there. Okay, I'm going to finish off quickly. It's useful if you can provide a self-assessment checklist for things like this. So both pictures show this, neither picture shows this. They have these things in common. On the one hand, on the other hand. So we have language for comparing, language for contrasting, language for speculating, language for opinions. And then we have the self-assessment part on the right. How well did I do it? How good was my language? What I did well, where I can improve. What are my action points? So if I'm learning a language, I'm learning Italian, for example, I want to give myself some feedback of how I did. Yep. So that's something you can develop yourself. A learner self-assessment checklist. And of course, your learners will need the language for comparing, both, neither, in common, share, and they'll also need the language for contrasting, while, whereas, on the other hand. So you can provide that language. That's at a quite higher level there. That's probably 10th, 11th, 12th standard, perhaps. You can have topic. Here we had, remember we had 2 places, the 2 canals, and we had the 2 meetings. This time we have a topic of travel, compare and contrast the 2 railway stations. Do you recognize the station on the right, anybody? Maybe it's a bit difficult to say. Okay, all right. Picture on the right is Meduray Junction station, I think, or is it Chennai? Maybe it's Chennai Egmore. I can't remember. It's either Chennai Egmore or Meduray Junction, one of the 2. Chennai Central. I haven't been to Chennai Central. I've only been to Egmore in Chennai, so I think it might be Chennai Egmore, I think. But you perhaps know that better than I do. The picture on the right is Zurich Station in Switzerland, where I live. Okay, and we're finishing off now. We can also use pictures to compare different aspects of a topic, like different aspects of travel, traveling by taxi, by plane, by train, by rickshaw. Again, you can use 4 pictures there to develop those. Okay, we're coming up to the end now. To finish off, I'm just going quickly because I can see the time is running. Oops, somebody's drawing there. Let's just take that away. Sorry, clear. Clear all drawings. Okay, so, oh no, sorry, can you take away those drawings? Okay, all right. So there are a couple of books, Goldstein, Working with Images, and Keddy, James Keddy, Images, from Cambridge and Oxford University presses, respectively. Here are the picture addresses again, Pixabay, remember, and Unsplash. Now, there will be a PDF of this presentation, so all of this information is in there. And finally, I'll just leave that for a moment, just so you can make a note of it if you want to write down. So Goldstein, Working with Images, that's Cambridge University Press. Keddy, Images, that's Oxford University Press. They're probably available in bigger cities or from the publishers. I would imagine they're available in Chennai, for example, in Tamil Nadu, but probably not available in Meduray. Okay, and then the royalty addresses. You had those at the beginning. Here they are again. Pixabay and Unsplash. I used Unsplash all the way through, you'll notice. I just wanted to stick with one of them just to show you. Someone's asked me in the chat box about my visit to India. Well, I've had lots of visits to India. I think I've been to India in my life. I think I've been now 12, 14 times, maybe 15 times. Almost always to Tamil Nadu, and a little bit to Kochi, and a little bit to Mumbai. But I've never been further north than Mumbai. Mumbai is the furthest north I've ever got in India so far. So there's still plenty of India left for me to explore. Okay, well, thank you very much for your attendance and attention. We've run over a little bit, but we had this extra bit of time available, so I've used it just to go down a bit more slowly during the presentation to give you more chance to participate. Hope you've enjoyed it. I can see some people have. Thank you very much for your feedback. I hope it's been useful for you. I want to make it very practical to keep focusing on using these to develop your learners' language, to develop their skills, develop their participation. Deepti asking me my next visit, probably not until next year because of COVID, I'm afraid. So 2022 most likely is my next visit. So I want to be practical. As a teacher, I want practical ideas that I can use, practical ideas that I can adapt and change to my own situation. So you might have seen some things here that you think, well, I don't want to use it exactly the way he showed it, but I'd like to change it and do it like this. And that's fine. That's exactly what you should be doing with materials, is getting ideas and then adapting them to your own needs, to your own situation, to your own teaching, your own class, your own learners, making it yours. Okay, well, I'm going to stop there for now and stop the share. Thank you very much for your attention and attendance. I enjoyed all your comments. You gave me tons and tons of great ideas in the chat box, some very interesting ones indeed. So thanks to everyone who contributed. And I'd just like to end the session now. I'm going to end the share, stop the share, and that's to see what happens when I go back. So I'd just like to say thank you for everyone's contributions. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share now. So that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Professor John.
And okay, hello, thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir. That was a picturesque presentation. We say pictures can speak volumes, and I'm sure you did that with your pictures that you have photographed yourself. We really enjoyed the session, and I'm sure our teachers would be able to apply these learnings in their classroom teaching as well. So with that, I would like to thank all the participants as well. Kind attention to all the participants. The feedback link is posted in the chat. Request you all to fill the feedback form, and also an announcement that e-certificates for your participation will be provided for those participants who have attended on both the days, that is yesterday and today's session. So thank you, Professor John, for your wonderful presentation. That was really interesting and enthralling as well. At this juncture, on behalf of the School of English, I would like to express my gratitude to the management of Kumaraguru Institutions. I also thank our principal, Dr. Vigila Kennedy, who has been motivating the department to conduct such an event. And I extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Manjula Bhashani, who is leading the department and who planned meticulously for the conduct of this session. I thank my faculty members, my colleagues, Dr. Radhika and Dr. Swagata. And I also thank Mr. Leo of Visual Communication Department, who has been giving us a strong technical support and who made this online event possible. Thank you, sir. And last but not the least, thanks to all the participants and teachers from different schools and different other colleges and institutions that you have joined. I'm sure this would be a great gleaning experience for all of us. So have a great evening. And once again, thank you, Professor John, and thank you all the participants. A gentle reminder, do not leave the session without filling the feedback form. So we request you to fill the feedback form before you leave the session. Thank you all.
Thank you. So thank you. I'd just like to say, if I have, is my microphone on? Yes. Yes. I'd just like to echo that. I'd like to thank you back for your invitation and for the technical support and for the administrative support. I think it went very nicely from a technical point of view today. It was seamless without any problems. And I think it was good that so many people could contribute in the chat box. So I think that lots of people had the opportunity to participate, which I think is good. And it's difficult when you can't speak because of the microphone being muted, but at least with the chat box, you can put in your ideas, which people did. I'd like to thank you very much for your help and for the college, for the invitation, and to everyone, the principal, head of department, etc. Yeah, so thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you, Professor.
I'll close there. I'll close there now. It's nice that you call me professor. I'm not actually a professor, but it's nice that you call me a professor. It's
yes, sir. Thank you.
I don't mind if you call me professor. That's always nice. Thank you. But I take it as a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, I'm going to stop there now. So I'm going to leave now, if that's okay. I don't know, maybe for feedback or leave the meeting. Okay, my internet is going anywhere. Okay, so good. Have a good rest of the day and be in touch. Okay.
Thank you, sir. The feedback link is posted in the chat. Participants kindly fill the feedback form. Thank you all for joining the session.